I would give you that most bands, if you really like looked under the hood, would have a long list of Me Too problems. I'd give you that one, and probably drug problems too. But this is something like threatening murder. Again, allegedly shooting a woman in the face, though that's not coming in. That's separate. That's the whole J-Lo thing back in 2000 that somebody else took the rap for, but the victim says it was Diddy. But he's just got there's a lot of smoke around Diddy, which can lead a jury to find a fire. And there's actual hardcore proof of criminal acts. Like there's no question about the prostitutions. There's no question that he beat Cassie Ventura, and not just that once. The evidence is overwhelming of serial beatings of this woman. And not surprisingly now, the supporting cast, the assistants, the sex workers, we're going to have others who are supporting this field of criminality, like this act and that act and the other, are not the most upstanding people. Go ahead.
Well, I'm viewing it again through what they are not disclosing or what is not coming up by way of the RICO sex trafficking. Yes, it's an organization that involves criminality. I think many people would understand that's what the rap industry is. It's how they market it. That's how they label it. If you're going to expand RICO prosecutions to within the music industry, there's criminality, then yeah, you're not far off from going to drug addiction and telling people to shut up and don't talk about this or whatever. You're going to prosecute them for RICO. This was sold as Diddy's mansion being raided because of a network of cameras that rivaled Epstein's, blackmail, extortion in terms of that. And now it's been reduced to, okay, gangsters acting like gangsters. He's going to get convicted. I mean, my prediction was when the defense
I agree with what you're saying.
When the defense starts off with, yeah, he gets violent when he gets jealous, but he's not a sex trafficker. All right, good luck with that. He's going to get convicted, but it's by virtue of what he's convicted on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I will also add to that by saying I have been so far underwhelmed with what they found in these raids, which means they either didn't find a lot or we're not seeing all of what they found, to your point, because it's mostly lube and baby oil and some guns, which this is America. You're allowed to have guns. I don't know if these were illegal guns. There was some testimony that some had the serial numbers shaved off of them, and that could be potentially problematic. So all of that is allegedly part of it, but it's not the Epstein tapes by far. All right, Phil, let me give you this. Cross has begun of Capricorn, and it's going pretty well for Diddy, the Cross. Now, from this, I don't know whether it wipes out all of the direct, but let me read you what happened so far. On Cross, this is via CNN, defense attorney Mark Agnifilo began by confirming with Capricorn Clark that they had met before. Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos, that's another player. So on the prosecution side, you've got James Comey's daughter, and then Garagos, sorry, she's on the defense side. Tenny Garagos is the daughter of Mark Garagos. So it's like these legal giants' offspring squaring off against each other. So anyway, defense attorney Agnifilo, defense attorney Tenny Garagos, and another attorney for Sean Combs met with Capricorn Clark on April 10th of 2024. Agnifilo asked Clark to confirm that she told them at that meeting that Combs, quote, wouldn't be in this mess if he had kept her around. She acknowledged that she did probably say something like that as they discussed the possibility of her returning to work for him as his chief of staff. She also told the lawyers at the meeting Cassie Ventura was not good for Combs. By the way, not for nothing, but the attorney who accompanied Clark to that meeting was the Waldo now of high-powered cases, my own lawyer, Brian Friedman. He's everywhere. He's got Baldoni. He had me. He had Gabrielle Union, Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon. He had to do that one. And now, now he's in the Menendez case, and he was with Capricorn Clark at this meeting. But you see what they're going for, Phil, that she appears to, as of April of last year, been angling to get rehired by this terrible, terrible man who almost committed a murder in her presence.
Yeah, and this is why I was saying earlier that, the jury has plenty of reason not to believe this woman. Look, she's saying that Cassie was not good for Combs. I mean, my God, it's Combs that was not good for Cassie or anybody else, apparently. And yet she's saying that she would be, I guess, willing to go back to work as the chief of staff for this rapper. I don't understand how the prosecution is expecting the jury to even take this woman seriously. My hope is that they're going to strengthen their case with some witnesses in the following days and maybe weeks that you cannot impeach in this way, because clearly this witness has some reason to have some kind of an emotional investment in Combs himself or in the overall enterprise, or maybe even in her testimony. And so the jury has plenty of reasons to question it. So I really think that, yeah, like you said, there's plenty of smoke and maybe the jury can find a fire, but the prosecution, if they must clean this up. They must get into some more hard, and I hate to even say this, hardcore criminal proof of crimes, because otherwise the jury.
Why do you say that? What about the multiple beatings that he gave to Cassie? And you don't think the jury has enough to credit Kid Cudi's suspicion that Diddy dropped a Molotov cocktail in his car? Now it's been backed up by her and by Cassie and by Kid Cudi himself. That alone. Seeing the beating with your own eyes, hearing from Cassie's mother, his assistants, security. Now, this witness and Kid Cudi, too, about the abuse that Cassie endured over the years. Like, there's been multiple submissions of proof on repeated criminal acts.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree that he probably is guilty of all these things. But my point simply is that from a trial tactics perspective, I think it's bad form for prosecutors to muddy up their case with witnesses that can be impeached this easily. And one thing that a good lawyer can do is at the end of the trial, they can go through this and they can say,
they needed her because of the December of 2011 day, where she both went in the car to Kid Cudi's house and saw Diddy go in there and said, and can testify, he said he was going to kill him. And she could testify about the beatings that she saw of Cassie, which she also supported, and that he attacked her. So I think they needed her, and they figured it was worth it to take that hit on her wanting to go back to him. And I don't know how they're going to handle that on redirect. Go ahead, Viva.
I'll just add this as a Canadian attorney who never practiced criminal law. But, when you think of criminal organizations, we are seeing evidence of criminality and cover-ups. And there's already laws dealing with that, conspiracy, aiding and abetting, whatever. When we're visualizing criminal organizations, what we are visualizing is mob organizations whose...
True. But the law is, as an American lawyer who did practice law for 9 years, the law is you only need 2 predicate acts. That's it. You just need 2 acts of illegality, and they don't have to be within the statute of limitations. And they've got it. They've got it. You may not like the law, but that's the law. And you do have to have a conspiracy, however. So they have to show that he had an agreement with other people to do some of these criminal acts, which is why the staff's now taking the stand and saying, I had to clean, I gave the drugs. I stood by while she was beaten. I went with him to kill Kid Cudi. It's crazy testimony. So go ahead, Viva.
I just want to know, they're reducing these freak-offs or these sex things to just P. Diddy getting his rocks off, pun intended. Like, that's what they've reduced these things down to, when they were so much more than that. I know that they've started naming some names or some celebrities, but when Diddy got arrested and people started going back in the internet time and pulling up videos that now in retrospect look highly suspect. The idea that they're reducing these sex parties to Diddy's own personal satisfaction is laughable. And I think it's not realistic that what they're not revealing or what they're covering up is much more sinister and much more wide-reaching than just Diddy looking to get.
Well, let me ask you this, Viva. I wouldn't be shocked by a verdict that finds him guilty of the RICO count, the racketeering conspiracy, and guilty of transportation of a prostitute, and not guilty of sex trafficking, because they amassed enough evidence, the defense did, that Cassie kind of went along with the freak-offs, at times said at least she wanted the freak-offs, or at least, because let's not forget that the sex trafficking by force count requires not only that he forced her by coercion or fraud, it also requires that he knew she didn't want it, that he knew she was being forced. And so the defense is introducing emails from her, I can't wait to freak off again. When do you want it? And that she was the one who called all the sex trafficking, all the sex workers, and paid all the sex workers. And that she testified she stayed because she loved the lifestyle. So the defense has got, I could see that count not going their way. But the whole RICO count is kind of like he built this criminal enterprise and did all these terrible things in order to enable the freak-offs. So could you have a conviction on RICO and not on sex trafficking? Would that make sense?
I wouldn't venture any sort of professional opinion there, but my prediction would be the exact inverse, that he's going to get convicted on the transportation for prostitution, maybe on the trafficking, because I think it's very easy. It will be not very easy, but the evidence is there now to lend credibility to the argument that Cassie was definitely physically beaten, extorted into it, and coerced into it. So I think that's there. Then I think, you get an acquittal or a non-conviction on the RICO, but he still goes to jail for 10, 20 years. I don't know if they run them concurrent or what's the other one?
Consecutive.
Consecutive. But no, I think they get him on the easiest one. Right off the bat, the evidence is there. And I think it's not hard to show the coercion. Nobody wants to have a freak off when they're having a urinary tract infection. She was physically beaten. All they need to know. And if it happened once, it happened more than once. To say that she freely did anything, I don't think any reasonable jury member is going to believe.
And the other thing that we're not accounting for here, Phil, is by this point in the trial, the jury hates him. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the US dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for US dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition, if it happens, would not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.